All right, buckle up, everybody, because we are diving headfirst into the world of Bitcoin today.
Oh yeah, it's a fascinating one for sure.
It can seem pretty simple on the surface,
Yeah, I hear you.
just like digital money, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I have a feeling there's a whole lot more to it.
Oh, absolutely. There's layers and layers and
And
layers.
we're going to go beyond the headlines in this deep dive.
Yes, we are.
Try to really figure out what makes Bitcoin tick and why people think it could change everything.
Well, and that's part of the challenge, right? Like, is it just hype
Exactly.
or is it something truly revolutionary? It's a bit of a mind bender.
It is, and we have a ton of research to try to sift through today, so
Yeah, we've got articles, white papers. We even went into some of the forums and stuff just to see
it's a chatter.
what people are saying. And it
Yeah.
seems like everyone has a different opinion on Bitcoin.
That's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah, it really challenges you to think differently about money and technology.
Mm.
So to understand it, I think we really need to look at it from all these different angles.
Okay, so where do we even begin with that?
Well, one of the sources we've been looking at, this paper called Desafios to Bitcoin, suggests three key perspectives
Okay.
to think about it as
Right.
Bitcoin as peer-to-peer payments,
See?
Bitcoin as a decentralized network, and then Bitcoin as like a new way to store value.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Peer-to-peer payments. That
Yeah.
seems pretty straightforward, right?
Right.
Just like sending money to a friend directly.
Exactly. Like imagine
Wow.
Venmo, right?
Right.
But without needing a bank or PayPal or anybody in the middle.
So you're cutting out the middleman and all the fees that come with it.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, that's one of the big appeals.
Yeah, I see that. So what about this idea of a decentralized network? That's one of the things that makes Bitcoin so different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So instead of like a central authority like a bank or a government
Right.
controlling everything, Bitcoin relies on like a distributed network of computers to verify and record all those transactions.
It's like a shared ledger.
Yeah, like a giant shared ledger that everybody can see but nobody controls.
Okay, that is where my brain starts to melt a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little out there.
The idea of this network managing money
I know.
just seems really abstract. So how do we know it's secure? Like, who's making sure it all runs smoothly?
That's where the technology comes in. It's called blockchain.
Okay.
And this is like the backbone of the entire system. So picture like a chain of blocks,
Oh,
and each block contains a record of like a bunch of Bitcoin transactions. And all these blocks, they're linked together cryptographically, which basically makes them tamper-proof.
so it's like a digital fortress
Yeah, pretty much.
protecting all of those transactions. So it sounds super secure.
That's the idea, yeah.
But what about transparency? Can anyone just like look into this blockchain and see everything that's happening?
That's the cool part. The blockchain is completely transparent. So anybody can view the history of transactions.
So it's not anonymous.
Well, it doesn't reveal personal information, but you can see where Bitcoin is moving,
Okay.
which is supposed to make the system accountable. It's like a public record of every Bitcoin transaction ever.
That's a lot of data.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got this decentralized secure system
Mm-hmm.
based on this blockchain technology.
Yeah.
But how does Bitcoin actually function within all of that? Like, what makes it work?
So in Desafios to Bitcoin, they highlight 5 key features that kind of set Bitcoin apart. And some of these we've already touched on, like the decentralization, the security, and the transparency.
Right.
But the other 2 are scarcity and immutability.
Scarcity and immutability. Okay, so let's unpack those.
let's
Just starting with scarcity. I think I read somewhere that there's like a limited supply of Bitcoin. So how does that work?
So that's actually programmed into Bitcoin's code, the original code.
Right.
There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in
Right.
existence.
Wow.
And that built-in scarcity, that leads to some interesting implications.
So unlike government-issued currencies, where they can just print more whenever they want,
Right, exactly.
Bitcoin supply is fixed.
Kind of finite.
So no risk of, like, inflation.
Well, that's the theory.
Right.
But it also leads to some debate about whether that limits its potential.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some people think that scarcity is exactly what's going to drive Bitcoin's value up as
Right.
demand increases. But then others are worried about, like, deflation.
Right, if the price gets too high.
Exactly.
Okay, so scarcity is a big one. What about immutability?
Yeah, immutability basically means that once a Bitcoin transaction is recorded on that blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost impossible to alter or reverse it.
Oh, wow.
It's like carving something in stone.
no takebacks.
No takebacks, exactly.
But I guess that also makes it super secure.
Yes, It's highly resistant to fraud because once you send Bitcoin,
It's gone.
it's gone and there's no one to call to get it back.
Right.
It's liberating and terrifying at the same time.
High stakes.
High stakes.
Okay, so we're starting to get a handle on these core principles.
Mm-hmm.
Decentralization, security, transparency, scarcity, and immutability.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on the actual mechanics of it all.
Yeah.
Like, who's keeping track of all these transactions?
Yeah.
And who's maintaining this blockchain, making sure it works?
So there are different players in this ecosystem. The miners, the nodes, and the wallets.
Okay. Those are some interesting titles.
Yeah.
Who are these Bitcoin movers and shakers?
Well, so imagine this huge decentralized network of computers all working together.
Okay.
The miners are the ones constantly verifying and adding new transactions to the blockchain.
Got it.
They do this by solving ridiculously complex math problems, like a giant digital puzzle.
So they're like the backbone of the system.
Yeah, they're crucial.
Keeping it secure, running smoothly.
Yep.
But what motivates them to do this? Like, why would they devote so much computing power to solving these problems?
It's a mix of incentives and, ideology. So when a miner cracks one of these math problems, they get rewarded with newly created Bitcoin.
It's like a digital gold rush.
Exactly.
They're all competing to find the next block
Yeah.
and claim the reward.
And that's why we see people investing in these massive mining operations.
Right, trying to get an edge.
But that also leads to another concern, the energy consumption.
Right, all those computers running 24/7.
It's a big debate in the community right now
Yeah, I can imagine.
about whether it's sustainable.
Definitely some ethical and environmental considerations there.
For sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the miners, but you also mentioned nodes. What do those do?
Yeah, so think of nodes like the guardians of the blockchain.
Okay.
They're computers that store a complete copy of the blockchain,
Wow.
and they relay information across the network,
Got it.
making sure everybody's got the most up-to-date transaction history, like the librarians of the Bitcoin world.
Okay, so miners verify and add to the blockchain nodes, make sure everybody has the latest version. But where do we fit into all of this? The everyday users. That's where wallets come in.
Yeah, exactly. A wallet's like your digital interface to the Bitcoin network.
So like an app.
Yeah, like an app on your phone
Okay.
that lets you store, send, and receive Bitcoin.
Okay, so I get a wallet.
Mm-hmm.
I get some Bitcoin.
Right.
And then I can send it to anyone else who has a wallet.
Yeah, theoretically, that's how it's supposed to work.
No banks, no middleman. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But what if I lose my phone?
That's the thing. Security is paramount with Bitcoin. Unlike your bank, you can't just call and reset your password.
Oh, right.
If you lose your private key to your wallet, your funds are gone.
So it's like losing a wallet full of cash.
Exactly.
No way to recover it.
Yeah, big responsibility.
Okay, so be careful.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about the advantages. We've talked about some downsides, but what makes Bitcoin so appealing to people?
Well, increased security is a big one.
Yeah.
Remember that immutability thing we talked about?
Right.
Makes Bitcoin transactions extremely secure.
So less risk of, like, fraud or hacking.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, security is a plus. What else?
Lower fees.
Right, because you're cutting out those intermediaries,
Exactly.
especially for international transfers, I mean.
Yeah, that's a big one. Sending money overseas.
Without those bank fees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the appeal there. Anything else?
Well, there's also this idea of censorship resistance.
Yeah. What's that?
So because Bitcoin runs on this decentralized network,
Mm-hmm.
no single government or institution can control it.
So even if, like, a government tries to restrict access to financial services,
Right.
people could still use Bitcoin,
Yeah,
in theory.
that's pretty powerful, especially in, like, countries with unstable political situations.
Absolutely. You can give people more control over their own finances.
Wow, okay. So we're seeing some real benefits here.
Mhm.
Security, lower fees, this censorship resistance.
Yep.
But is it actually accessible? Is this something anyone can use, or is it just for, like, techie people? Well, it might seem complex, but it's getting easier all the time.
Okay.
Anyone with an internet connection can use Bitcoin.
Hmm.
You don't need a bank account or anything like that.
So it could open up financial opportunities for people who are traditionally excluded.
Exactly. It has that potential.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But we've also talked about the downsides, the volatility, the scalability issues,
Right.
and the fact that it's not really regulated yet. It seems like a double-edged sword.
It definitely is. It's a revolutionary technology with the potential to disrupt everything,
Mm-hmm.
but it also comes with a lot of risks and challenges.
For sure. So that's a great overview of what Bitcoin is,
Yeah.
how it works,
Mm-hmm.
and some of its potential and drawbacks.
We just scratched the surface.
We did.
But it's a good starting point.
It is. Now, in the next part, we're going to shift gears and look at why this all matters.
Okay.
What are the implications of Bitcoin for the future of finance and technology, and even society as a whole?
Yeah, we're getting into the big questions.
The big questions. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. We spent the first part of this deep dive really getting into the nuts and bolts of Bitcoin.
Yeah, all the details.
The technology, the features,
Right.
even some of those challenges.
Yeah.
But now I'm curious about the bigger picture. Is Bitcoin just like a Silicon Valley fad?
Yeah,
Or does it have the power to change the world?
that's the big question, right? And it's really too early to know for sure.
Yeah.
But what I think is fascinating is that it's forcing us to rethink some of our fundamental ideas about money, finance, power,
So what exactly are we rethinking?
Well, for centuries, we've relied on these big centralized institutions.
Right, government, central banks.
Exactly, to control our financial systems, to issue currencies, to set interest rates.
They decide how the money flows.
Yeah. But Bitcoin proposes a completely different model.
Okay.
A decentralized system where no one entity is in control.
So it's like Bitcoin is saying, what if we get rid of the middleman and let people have more direct control over their money?
Exactly. And that shift in control has huge implications. For one, it could be really empowering for individuals, especially those who are underserved by traditional financial systems.
You give an example?
Yeah, think about people in countries with hyperinflation or, unstable governments.
Okay.
Bitcoin could offer them a way to protect their savings or participate in the global economy without having to rely on, a potentially corrupt or unreliable system.
That's a pretty powerful idea.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that also kind of threaten the power of governments and central banks?
Oh, there's definitely some tension there. I mean, governments are understandably wary of a system that they can't control, that they can't easily regulate.
Yeah, they don't want to lose that power.
Exactly.
So we're already seeing countries kind of wrestling with how do we classify and regulate Bitcoin? Some are embracing it. Others are trying to restrict it, even ban it.
It's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out.
It's like this big tug of war between the old guard and the new kids on the block.
Right.
But what does all this mean for the average person who's just trying to figure out this new financial landscape?
I think it means we're in for a period of really rapid change and a lot of uncertainty. The landscape is constantly shifting, and there are a lot of unanswered questions.
Right.
But there are also tremendous opportunities for innovation and disruption.
Yeah, it feels like we're witnessing the birth of a new technology that could completely transform how we think about money.
Yeah.
Okay, so buckle up, everybody. It's going to be a wild ride.
Definitely.
But beyond the financial implications, are there other potential impacts of Bitcoin we should be thinking about?
Oh, absolutely. One area that's getting a lot of attention is the environmental impact.
Right. We talked about the energy consumption of mining.
Yeah, all those computers running constantly to solve those complex math problems.
Using tons of electricity.
Exactly. And that, of course, can contribute to carbon emissions, climate change.
It's a big concern.
It is. And it's become a major point of debate within the Bitcoin community.
Right.
Some people argue that the energy use is worth it because of the potential benefits of the technology.
They see it as a necessary trade-off.
Right. While others are really pushing for more sustainable mining practices.
Like using renewable energy sources.
Exactly. Or developing more energy efficient mining algorithms.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but also about how we use it.
Right. The ethical and environmental considerations are just as important.
It adds a whole other layer to the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And we haven't even talked about all the potential applications of blockchain technology beyond just cryptocurrency.
Oh, I know. There's so much to explore there.
People are looking at it for everything from, supply chain management to voting systems to healthcare records.
It's mind-blowing.
It really has the potential to transform so many different industries.
Yeah, okay, hold on. We can save those tangents for another deep dive.
Yeah, fair enough.
For now, let's stick with Bitcoin. So we've talked about the potential benefits, the drawbacks, the challenges. What's the big takeaway here? Why should people care about Bitcoin?
I think the most important thing to remember is that Bitcoin represents a fundamental shift in how we think about money and finance.
Okay.
It's challenging the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
It's a push towards decentralization and individual empowerment.
Right.
Whether it ultimately succeeds or fails, we don't know.
Yeah.
But it's making us have these important conversations about the future of our financial systems.
It's a conversation starter, a
Yeah.
catalyst for change, even if we don't know where it's going.
Exactly.
But I'm also hearing a little bit of caution in your voice.
Yeah, for sure.
It's important to approach this with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Absolutely.
Don't get caught up in the hype.
Right.
Do your own research, understand the risks.
Make informed decisions.
All good advice. But before we move on, I have one more question.
Okay.
We've talked about how Bitcoin could disrupt the financial system, but could it also, reinforce existing power structures?
That's a really important question. And it's something we need to be mindful of.
Okay.
Because while Bitcoin is designed to be decentralized and accessible,
Right.
there's always a risk that it could be co-opted by those who already has power and wealth.
Right. The people who already benefit from the current system.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this happen with other technologies.
Like the internet.
Exactly. Social media, where the initial promise of democratization kind of gets overshadowed by, concerns about surveillance, censorship, and the concentration of power in the hands of a few.
So it's not just about the tech itself,
Right.
but about how it's used and who controls it.
Absolutely. And that raises all sorts of questions about governance, about regulation.
About the potential for abuse.
Exactly. I think we're just starting to understand the full implications of this.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It is. It's exciting. It's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
We're in uncharted territory here. This
Yeah.
is a new frontier.
Okay, so we've gone from digital currency to reshaping the global financial system to potential for both empowerment and control.
It's a lot, I know.
My head is spinning.
Yeah,
But I feel like we're starting to get a grasp on the big picture.
I think so.
Okay, so we've explored why Bitcoin matters,
Mhm.
the implications for the financial system and beyond,
Right.
and even some of the ethical and philosophical questions it raises.
There are a lot of them.
But we're not done yet. In a final part of our deep dive, we're going to try to bring it all together
Okay.
and leave you with some thought-provoking questions
Yeah.
to consider as you continue to explore this world of Bitcoin.
Sounds good.
Stay with us. And we are back for the final part of our Bitcoin deep dive.
It's been a journey.
It really has.
Yeah.
We've gone from the nitty-gritty details of the technology all the way to these big philosophical questions about the future of finance.
It's been a lot to cover.
It has. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that I think often gets overlooked in all of this, and that's, the human element.
Oh, for sure. At the end of the day, Bitcoin's a technology, right? But it's a reflection of the people who create and use it. It's driven by human motivations, human beliefs, and used to try to achieve human goals.
So it's about the stories of the people behind it.
Yeah.
The early adopters, the developers, the entrepreneurs, even just like the everyday users.
Yeah, their hopes, their fears, their dreams.
Yeah, and I bet those stories are just as interesting as the tech itself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about the early days of Bitcoin.
Right.
The small group of cypherpunks and tech enthusiasts who were just passionate about creating a decentralized peer-to-peer digital currency.
It's like the Wild West of finance.
Totally.
These pioneers staking their claim in this new digital frontier.
Right. And I'm sure there were some colorful characters and some
sure.
pretty heated debates back then.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And honestly, those debates continue today.
They do.
The Bitcoin community is really diverse. There's a huge range of perspectives on how it should evolve, what role it should play in society.
It's like this breeding ground for ideas, constantly evolving and changing.
Exactly. It's like a microcosm of the internet itself.
But what about the everyday users? Where do they fit into all of this?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Like, for Bitcoin to really succeed, it needs to go beyond just those early adopters and become truly mainstream.
Yeah, it can't just be a niche thing.
Right. And that means making it accessible, understandable, and relevant to, everyday people.
So it has to actually solve real-world problems.
Yeah,
Offer tangible benefits.
for sure.
Be user-friendly.
Exactly. We need to move beyond the hype and speculation and focus on building a Bitcoin ecosystem that empowers individuals, fosters innovation, and creates a more equitable financial future.
Okay, so we've talked about the tech, the potential, the risks, the human element.
Yeah,
We've come full circle.
we have.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this one question. What's next? Where does Bitcoin go from here?
That is the million-dollar question. And honestly, I don't think anybody knows for sure.
It's still unfolding.
Yeah, the future of Bitcoin is still being written.
Yeah.
And it's a story that we're all participating in, whether we know it or not.
We're all characters in this narrative.
We are, and as with any good story, there will be twists and turns, surprises, setbacks.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it exciting, right?
Right.
We're witnessing the birth of a new technology that could completely change the world.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to decide what that future looks like.
Well said. So to all of our listeners out there,
Yeah.
keep learning, keep exploring, keep asking questions about Bitcoin and the future of finance.
It's a journey
It's a journey.
that's just beginning.
Who knows where it'll lead?
Yeah, stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged.
Because the future is waiting to be written, and we're all a part of that story.
We are.
That's a wrap on this deep dive into Bitcoin. Hope you enjoyed the journey. Until next time, keep diving deep.